Hi, this is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6, Delta Alpha Yankee, and for today's video, it's kind of pissing down rain outside today, so it gave me a little bit of inspiration to do a really quick video on a subject that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is selecting radios for emergency communications that have the proper level of weather protection applied to them. Now, when it comes to weather protection terms, hopefully you're all familiar with the IP rating system, or at least passingly familiar with them. Surprisingly, a lot of folks actually aren't, but I'm not going to delve into the details of what each digit in the IP rating does. I'm just going to talk about basically three different IP ratings today. Now, it's going to be IP54, IP65, I believe, or 66, and IP67. Those are the three that you're going to encounter, or four, that you're going to encounter the most. What you're really going to encounter most often is either IP54 or IP67, and they mean two very, very different things. Now, let me talk first about that IP65 and 66 rating. That is, well, not submersible. Those are radios that can resist somebody spraying literally a garden hose onto the radio directly from any angle in any direction. That's a direct water jet, and that's something that's going to survive a little rainstorm like we're having today. IP67, which is submersible to a depth of 1 meter for up to 30 minutes and resists water intrusion, well, that's definitely going to resist any kind of rainstorm that can be provided by Mother Nature today. But IP54, a lot of people see that and they go, oh, well, it's IP rated. It shows weather resistant, and on the side of the box it had little water droplets and it says IP54 weather rated and all that. So you sort of think, well, I'll be good to go in a rainstorm, right? Don't bank on that. IP54 literally is the least you can do to weather protect your radio. It is essentially water droplets on the radio. It is indirect water jets from a very small nozzle. It's not a direct spray. It's more of, we're going to get the radio kind of wet, sort of like it would be in a light rainstorm. And yeah, that's a rating, but what about a heavy rainstorm? What about a heavy rainstorm that you're out in for 6 to 8 hours? Eventually, there's every chance your radio may die, despite the fact that it possesses an IP rating. And I know this because I know people that have had this happen to them. In particular, with the radio that I'm kind of fond of, the Anytone ATD878UV, one of my favorite radios. And I actually had this in my EmComm rotation for a long time and relied pretty heavy on it. But I've now heard several reports from several very reputable sources that their radios were killed by going out in a rainstorm, just deader than a doornail. That gave me enough cause for concern that I pulled that out of the rotation, and now that's strictly a recreational radio for me. And I guess I should also mention the big difference between recreational radio and emergency communications, and why these IP ratings are so important, is if you're doing recreational radio, you just want to talk to your friends, maybe take a walk around the block and talk on your radio while you walk your dog, great, perfect recreational pursuit. But if you peek out the window and you see that it's pissing down rain, you can also go, well, I'm not going to go for that walk today. I'll do that later when it dries up. But when it comes to the world of emergency communications, you do not have the luxury of picking the ideal weather environment to operate your radio in. That gets chosen for you. And if the order of the day is going to be major rainstorm, you better have a radio that's capable of surviving that event and more. So that's why the baseline for me for selecting an emergency communications radio is IP67. If it's submersible to a depth of 1 meter for 30 minutes and no water gets in, it's definitely, as I said earlier, going to resist any kind of rainstorm that Mother Nature can provide. So IP67 for me, minimum standard. Now, the world of IP67 radios, fortunately, you can get them in a lot of different flavors and a lot of different price points. The EmComm ICT10, excellent radio for outdoor use. Now, I have a troubled history with this radio. Hate the menu, hate the front panel, hate the display, but when it comes to actually doing radio, getting on a frequency and talking to somebody under pretty much any set of conditions or circumstances, this radio absolutely kicks ass. It's a good radio. Excellent battery life, on and on, but it does have a really crappy menu and a really crappy display. I always have to say that as a disclaimer, but like I said, love-hate relationship with this radio. But it's IP67. And furthermore, it features an IP67 speaker mic connection, which is kind of like it's sort of a Kenwood K-plug. It's a different layout, but it does have a weather protected connection for that. Now, there are a lot of radios in the economy world made by Beovang, Retevis, and others that say the radios are IP67, but the second you take that speaker mic port cover off, you see a K1 connection. And the moment you plug a speaker mic into that K1 connection, it's no longer an IP67 radio, because water can get in there, and in a rainstorm, water can still potentially get in through that speaker mic connection and cause you problems. But if you shop wisely in the economy radio market, and I'll try to avoid the term cheap because cheap implies flimsy and unreliable, and something like the iLunce HA1 Golf, this is not cheap or flimsy or unreliable. This is actually a very good economical radio. And another thing that they've done that sort of puts them head and shoulders above other economical radios that feature IP67 is they have a genuine IP67 speaker mic connection here that features a contact strip rather than ports where you have a 3.5 millimeter and 2.5 millimeter plug that penetrate the radio. Instead, the contact is made through this contact strip here based on the Motorola system. This thing is going to stay IP67, whether you have a speaker mic connected to it or not. So that is an excellent, excellent job. And I'm going to be talking more about this radio probably in my next video, because I wanted to do sort of a long-term test results on this radio, because as GMRS radios go, this sucker is way up there on my list. I'm using this thing all the time and love it. I got another really interesting revelation coming on another radio based on this next couple of days on that one. But back to the subject of today's video, and I'll wrap it up. When you're considering a radio for emergency communications, really think hard and really look carefully at that IP rating, and try to find yourself or base your system around a radio that's IP67, and you're not going to regret it, because that's going to survive, again, pretty much any kind of rainstorm that you're going to find yourself caught in. So with that, I'll bring it to an end. Thank you for watching or listening. This is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6, Delta Alpha Yankee from Visalia, California. Have a wonderful day.